is Tom Baughn. I'm a master gardener for the past 18 years. I'm currently a master gardener here in Fauquier and Rappahannock County unit. And today we're going to talk about my favorite trees. We're on my 3 plus 2 more acres that I grow trees and other things on, vegetables of course and that sort of thing. But I have, like any good avid gardener, I have collected a lot of trees, and some of them are very unusual. So I kind of wanted to show people some of the different ones that they probably have never seen before, so they can consider putting one in their own yard or something. Okay? The first 2 trees we're going to talk about are these 2 magnolias right here. They are deciduous. They lose their leaves during the winter time, but they come on and flush out again, and they get nice big beautiful blooms on them. This is a galaxy magnolia, which has got a lavender kind of color, a very large flower. Probably, I'd say when it's fully open, it's a good dinner plate size, pretty much. This one here is an Elizabeth magnolia, and it's got a nice creamy white flower. Okay, the tree behind me is a tulip poplar. Most people are familiar with it. It's a native, very nice tree. They grow fairly quickly. And you will find that if your hummingbirds suddenly abandon your feeders, it's because the tulip poplar is in bloom. When it comes in bloom, they just swarm to that and give up on the other feeders for a while until it's done blooming. Easy to grow, so I highly recommend it. Okay, the next tree that I would talk about is the Kousa dogwood. That's K-O-U-S-A. It's the Asian dogwood, and it will bloom after our native dogwood and has a 4-pointed flower and everything. It's a little bit bigger than the native dogwood. But it's a very pretty tree. As you can see here, the leaves are slightly different. It'll actually keep its leaves on it a little longer than the native dogwood as well. These do come in all different shades of color too. The native dogwood, of course, has the pinks, but there's a couple of cultivars of this Kousa dogwood that are almost red flowers. I actually put one in at Rady Park if you ever want to go see it. Okay, this is the next tree I wanted to highlight. This is called a Zelkova, Z-E-L-K-O-V-A. It's a Eurasian tree, and as you can see, the leaves look a lot like an elm tree, but they're kind of a rounded instead of a toothed leaf tree. These are real good you'll see them occasionally in cities and large towns because they're great with pollution. That doesn't bother them. And they're also more tolerant of salt buildup when they do with roads and stuff like that. But this is a beautiful tree, and as you can see, the canopy is really nice. But the thing that makes this one stand out so much is the orange bark that you see down here. So that's why the cultivar is named an ogon, as in Japanese that's orange. And I'll show you another coral bark Japanese tree a little later too. This one's it's a slow grower. It's about 7-8 years, I'd say now. Okay, this is the next tree. This is called a blue Atlas cedar. Blue as in B-L-U-E, Atlas cedar. And it's fast growing. And again, this is another one that you can plant at the corner of your house to soften that harsh corner architecturally. And it makes a nice planting for that. It's pretty well plant it and leave it. It's very easy to grow. Fairly popular. You can find them just about at any nursery and even at the box stores. So, okay. To admit, this is in my top 5. It's hard for me to come up with one at the top, but this is definitely in the top 5. You won't see this very often, but it blooms in the fall when very few trees are blooming. So it first blooms a nice white flower, and the bees and the butterflies just swarm it. I mean, when this thing's in full bloom, it is just covered with insects, beautiful insects and things. And once the white flowers fall off, and they bloom for a good 2 weeks, I'd say. Once those fall off, another 2 weeks later, this red, it's called a calyx or sepal, either one, is what comes on next. So you actually get 2 blooms out of one tree, and both of them are in the fall. How can that not be a favorite? It's the name of it. I guess I should talk about that a little bit. It's a little strange. It's called the 7, as in the number 7, sons, as in the son of a father, flower tree. So the way I always remember it, the Latin name is heptacodium, and of course hepta is the Latin for 7, so that kind of helps you kind of remember from 2 different angles. At least it helps me more. So this is called a heptacodium, or 7 sons flower. Now also you'll see in here, and I think Lisa took a good close-up, once the leaves are gone, you have a beautiful exfoliating bark here for the winter that is just to die for. These trees are normally grown like a, can't think of it right now, as a multi-trunk tree. I grew mine as a single trunk just to see if I could, of course. But it's very nice. You can see the growth habit too of the branches is very artistic and kind of unusual. It's not just the same straight up and straight out. You've got curved branches and everything, and all of them have a good exfoliating bark. So it's a nice tree. I highly recommend it. You'll be able to enjoy it when nothing else is blooming very much. It will be. Okay, this next tree is also in my top 5. It's called a coral, as in sea, coral bark Japanese maple. It's in the wintertime, unlike the Ogon zelkova that I showed you before. In the wintertime, some of the last 3 years growth turns the bark turns a little of a coral color, and it's very beautiful in the wintertime. So it's another nice landscape tree for the winter interest, when nothing else, of course, is, well, very little is growing. You can see how graceful the branching is. If you get one of these, make sure you prune it up to the first major division, and then once you get the divisions there, kind of prune it up as far as you can reach it. Japanese maples are real bad about doing a lot of little limbs, and most of them will fall off later, and so you're better off kind of trimming them back so you don't have so many of them. The leaves on this in the spring, you can see it a little bit now, and it'll come out more for the fall colors. But in the springtime, this has like 3 different colors on the leaves. It's just mind-blowing. This next tree I want to show you is a native. It's a sweet bay magnolia. They are medium growth rate, and now comparing it to the southern magnolia that a lot of people are used to, that are actually evergreen, they are borderline hardy in this area. Although with warming, it's going to be a little easier to grow them, but I wouldn't recommend them out in the rural area. They will do nicely in a town somewhere where you've got an average higher temperature and pavement to keep things warm as well. Those southern bay magnolias will grow pretty good there, but out in a normal non-city area, non-urban area, they can be very difficult to grow. You may buy 1 or 2 or 3 before you finally get success. So I'll recommend that. So the 2 that I started with, magnolias, this is another magnolia, of course, and it is deciduous too. It'll lose its leaves, comes back, grows back in the spring, and it has a nice cluster of white flowers that are about that size, and they bloom for a fairly long period of time. They do kind of some sequential blooming so that you've always got blooms. The marvelous thing about it, and why I planted it right here by my driveway and my walkway, is that they have a fragrance that you cannot believe. It's just, every time you walk by it, it's not blowing real hard or whatever, you can smell that fragrance, and it's just really great. So it's a very nice little tree and a native, grows easily here. The next tree you will have some trouble finding, but it's well worth a hunt. This is called a paperbark maple. It doesn't look, the leaf does not look that much like a maple, because instead of having one unified leaf here for the cluster that we're used to with the maple, the three leaves together kind of form a maple shaped leaf, you will see. Okay, so it's a slow grower, but the key thing is, again, for winter interest, this bark is just beautiful. Deep mahogany color and exfoliating, and just really looks sharp. It's got so many different colors. It's got some deep mahogany, some lighter mahogany, and then some even tan mixed in there. So this is a beautiful tree, and should be placed, if you get one, where everybody can see it. This next tree is called a Japanese snowbell, and it has these nice little pods on them, and the blooms are fantastic in the springtime again, and it's got a different shaped leaf and everything. When you're doing landscaping, you really want to try to vary your shape of your leaves and the color of them to make it more interesting. If you have just kind of a mono color landscape, it doesn't really do it much for most people. So this is one of the reasons why I've mixed in several different kinds of trees, so I do have that diversity and that variation that makes it look so nice.